Thank you so much for coming and for loving your kids with all your heart the way that you do. And I know that, I don't know any of you really, but I know that because you're here and you want to do better by them. Navigating our kids' big emotions can be, as you well know, overwhelming, exhausting, and intense. Because when they hurt, you hurt. It doesn't matter the age, right? It breaks your heart to see them in pain. It can be confusing, frustrating, even aggravating, often making us feel helpless. But that's their job. Their job is to feel their feelings. It's really their main job. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you about your jobs. So having big feelings can look a lot of different ways. I mean, a myriad of ways, depending on who the child is, who the parent is. So I'm just going to list a few examples of many, some of which you may be able to relate to. You might have a kiddo who falls down on the kitchen floor the minute they walk in from school. They're shouting and crying and flailing. Okay, touch your nose if you've got one of those, just so I know who's in the room. Okay, they're having their feelings all over the place. Right. They've steeled themselves all day with perfect behavior. Their teacher raves. They're a leader in the class, no problem, a great listener. And now it all comes out just for you. You might plead for them to stop, try to distract them, or even lose it and yell at them, snap at them. With the consistency of these fits, you likely get anxious, anticipating them every afternoon. Or maybe you've got a child who has shut herself down completely. She doesn't share anything. When asked, she's always fine. I'm fine, but she doesn't seem fine. Who's got one of those? Okay. She's in her head a lot, distant, and you wish you were more connected. When she does cry, it might be uncontrollably and deeply, but she acts as though you shouldn't see it. You don't know what to do. If you attempt to sympathize, maybe she yells at you to not do that. You're confused why she doesn't want to share, maybe worried, maybe even, frankly, a little bit hurt. Last example. Perhaps you have an exploding kiddo, right? Shrieks, kicks, yells that he hates you, hits his brother. His highs are super high, and his lows are really low. Anyone relate? Okay, so we've got some of all of three here. Anger comes out of him sideways and in unpredictable ways at unpredictable times. The aggression might frighten you, triggers you, embarrasses you. You often send him to his room where he continues his shrieking. You likely confuse this with more bad behavior or naughtiness, maybe even spoiledness. Again, your children are born with all the feelings, and they are supposed to have them. The thing is, they don't yet, growth mindset, right? They don't yet have the tools they need to notice them, to name them, to manage them, and share them. That's where you, as the adults, the parents, come in. Your job, your main job, is to support them in this learning. Okay, so this reframe sounds something like, and I didn't come up with this some of you may have heard before. The reframe sounds like, my child is having a hard time. Not my child is giving me a hard time. It's different. They are doing the best they can with where they are on their learning curve and what they know. Their behavior shows you what skills they have yet to learn. We don't mean to, but often we get upset with our kids when they're upset because it's dysregulating, right? We're very symbiotic with our children. And frankly, it's often inconvenient for us as their parents. When you're not able to stay even or calm, this causes you to discount your child's feelings. You try to stop it, either because you can't deal, you just don't have the bandwidth, I get it, or because it's too painful to witness. There's that love again, right? It's just too hard. That feeling of a child not being seen and heard in their pain is even more painful and harmful to them in the long term than the actual pain itself. And research shows it leads to trauma in the body, for those of you who've studied trauma. Being seen, heard, comforted, validated in your feelings helps to complete the stress response and process the emotions out of the body. By invalidating, shutting down, or ignoring your child's emotions, they get stuck in the body. This is when a child starts to make a situation mean something about them, their worthiness. And this wiring is really hard to undo, really hard. It leads to deep shame. And the more sensitive the kiddo, the deeper the shame. And I'm a personal example of this. Decades of therapy, rewiring from my own childhood. This creates a pattern in the brain that actually disconnects a child from their authentic self. Instead, it's on us to become more self-aware and aware of how our kids' big feelings affect us. To learn to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. To learn to take care of ourselves, to regulate our own emotions, so that we can meet our children with loving attunement and compassion, to help them build their sense of self, their self-trust, their resilience, and confidence. That's what we want, right? Yeah. If we continue to respond as if uncomfortable feelings are not okay, are scary or dangerous, your children will grow up to not trust themselves, which leads to incessant self-doubt, a deep lack of confidence. They'll grow up to experience your love as conditional, training them to not be fully authentic with others, leading to insecure, unhealthy relationships. And they'll grow up to feel like maybe something is wrong with them, not understanding the normalcy of emotion, which leads to them bottling up, judging, loneliness, things we don't want, right? In 3 to 5 years, if you continue on that path, it'll look like only more yelling, defiance, violent outbursts. This becomes the family dynamic. I've seen it. Or your kiddo will have shut down completely, be fearful of the world and certainly of being herself. They might have poor group dynamics, no true friends, an inability to build secure relationships or even take healthy risks. It can lead to impulsive behaviors, using adolescent peers as their compass versus you. Yes, peers become more and more important in middle school and should, and yet we still want to be their compass. It can lead to addiction, to screens, social media, drugs. You know where I'm going with this. This is why I do what I do. I work with parents of young ones because these are the years you're laying the tracks to bring consciousness to their parenting now, to ensure that before adolescence, when things get real swirly, everyone in the family feels safe to have their feelings, to be in authenticity. That takes practice. That takes time. In upping the EQ or the social and emotional intelligence as a parent, you've got to be willing to grow right alongside your kiddos. It takes humility. It takes trusting in the experience and the process of growing, learning, relating. Relating. It's a relationship. We're going to talk a lot about this tonight. So this brings us to actually what I'm going to cover tonight. Helping your kids manage their big feelings is about getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. Tonight, we're going to look at 3 ways that will help you nurture your relationship. Because this truly is the way. This is always the way. Though you're different sizes, right, you have vastly varying degrees of life experience, I'm going to ask you tonight, even if just for while you're here in the library, to think about and see your relationships with your kids at home, all of them at home, not just parent-child, but see your relationship with your child, your children, as lifelong relationships with those you most adore. Again, it's a bit of a reframe. Go with me here. Just stay with me, even just an hour and a half, okay? To do this, you've really got to keep relationship and connection front and center. So there are 3 important jobs that you have as parents when your children have big feelings that will help you keep this focus. 1 is practice. 2 is validate and empathize. 3 is about turning conflict into connection. Okay. Before I dive into them, I'm going to take just a few minutes and tell you who I am, because I don't know any of you. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in a very big family, very judgy family in the Midwest, 6 siblings, so busy house. And I felt completely alone as a child. I had an ambiguous attachment with my mother. Nobody in my family understood me. In fact, my questions, my deep feelings, they were just consistently denied. Why do you ask things like that? Why are you crying? Stop that, right? It was just shut down. I never felt heard or seen. To boot, I was a highly sensitive child. Who here has a highly sensitive child? Just a little wave. Mm-hmm. Who here is a highly sensitive person? Mm-hmm. Me too. Right, it's a different way of parenting too. When you're highly sensitive, you're highly sensitive for life. And I know now what a gift that is, right? I can feel what other people are feeling in a way that others can't. But as a child, I did not know this was a gift. So I set off into the world as soon as I could in my late teens, determined to figure out what the heck family meant. I was so confused. Like a sociologist, I filled hundreds of journals, many of which are still in my garage, with observations and questions. I literally studied parents and children. It was an interesting obsession in your late teens. And I have stories and observations. I lived abroad in many different countries, finished my BA in international studies, did my graduate work in education, and I taught elementary school for a long time. In all of my years of teaching, it was about connection to me, first and foremost, that emotional piece. Yes, I talked to parents about math scores and taught kids to read, but for me, our conferences were about how they related to others, their advocacy, what their passions were, right? I have students today still in touch with me in their late 20s, early 30s. Some of their parents still in touch with me too. Needless to say, I love teaching. When I left, I opened my own for-profit business focused on women expressing themselves authentically. I ran a few different nonprofits, all to do with education and empowering young families. I became a birth doula. I've attended over 100 births in this community, prepared couples for bringing a baby home. And through it all, I worked from the very same place: self-reflection, values, communication, emotional health. I brought the awareness into my body. I have over 30 years of an Iyengar yoga practice. I'm Indian certified as an instructor. I only share this because it deepened really my study of meditation, breathwork, physiology, the nervous system, Ayurvedic health. And all this time, to be real with you, I was in my own deep work, analysis and therapy to heal my inner child and find my worth. decades. I became a parent, then I became a single parent. So hopefully one of these things you can relate to, right? I was okay until the toddler years. In fact, I came into parenthood pretty confident with my experience and my education. But when my daughter, as a toddler, 3.5, suddenly wanted to go back to diapers, I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. So I found myself an excellent parent coach, no joke, who helped me to humbly realize so many things about myself. For one, I wanted my child to always be happy. I didn't really know that I was doing that. And frankly, my girl, she was pretty pissed off about this. Really. And that was her way of communicating to me. Because you see, behavior is a child's voice before they have the language, right? So through loads of mistakes, hard and dedicated work, I brought self-awareness into my parenting. Despite all my self-work already, parenting took it up a notch. That's what parenting does. If you're game, right? I up-leveled my self-awareness again, and I found ways to allow for my child to be who she was and get the heck out of her way instead of resisting. I'm always working, even today, every day, on getting more comfortable in the uncomfortable to own my default, which is inherited judgment. All of my career and life choices, oh yeah, that's my mini-me, have been an ongoing training in social and emotional intelligence. And as that term, that phrase has become more well-known, I have taken a lot of postgraduate courses in it, official trainings through PassageWorks, Girls Leadership. I'm a huge believer in its significance. It helps us to remember to raise our kids holistically and also that we are whole. Our well-being and our consciousness plays a great part in our kids. It's one of those sentences I want to repeat, but I'll keep going. Today, I oversee young teachers through the Friends Graduate Program as a mentor. I still work as an educator myself with moms and daughters mostly, but most of my time is spent supporting parents as a professional parent coach. And as such, I work with those who are invested in their growth, both as a parent and as an evolved human. I work with parents all over the world to help bring more consciousness into their parenting, more authenticity into their ever-evolving families, and balance into their lives. I help them look at themselves in order to model what they want to teach and parent from their values. Okay, that's who I am. I hope that as we go, we're going to dive into the 3 jobs now. I hope that as you go, you'll jot down a question. If you have one, feel free. Because at the end, I'd like to take questions instead of stopping after each section, if that's okay. Okay. First job. First, for a reason. It's the most important, in my opinion. Practice coming back to yourself. So at the pace we're moving, how full all of our lives are, it's really difficult, on the fly, to pause and respond, right? So parenting is often very reactive, necessarily so. I'm going to ask you tonight, at least while you're here, to see your reactions. Think about some of your reactions right now. Maybe from this afternoon, maybe from spring break, right? Some of your reactions as a signal to you about where you still need to grow. As parts of you that are still maturing, which is normal. There's so much reparenting that goes on when we parent. Let me ask you this. Do you find yourself often or easily offended by your kids' behavior? Okay, so just who here takes their comments, their outbursts, their behavior personally, ever? Okay, that's honest. The only thing we have control over, really, and this is going to push some of you, I know it, The only thing we have control over is ourselves and the way we act and react. We really don't have control over others. Again, think about this as relationship in general, okay? This includes our kids' feelings and how they behave. So this, I know, may be a mindset shift for some of you, but it's not your role to control your kids. It's your role to love them. In this shift, it's going to require more letting go, more trust, and a real generosity of spirit, belief and faith in your child. From this understanding, it's on us to slow the heck down and create enough space to become more self-aware. When we come back to ourselves, when we return to calm, right, to evenness, we're able to use our wise mind, I like to call it that, instead of reacting from the amygdala. Some of you know what that is, the lizard brain back here. That's where we're in flight, fight, freeze mode, and we don't make good decisions from this place. So we need to slow down and pause, because this isn't a place to parent from. We want to come to the wise mind to make decisions and to parent. It means not treating big emotions or discomfort, theirs or yours, as if it's a 911 situation. When we dysregulate, we tend to flash to unhappy childhood memories, and sometimes we project to future fears. Oh my God, if they do that, no one's going to be their roommate in college, spoiled brat. Like, we're jumping way ahead in milliseconds. Maybe that was just me, but we've all done that. We go back and forth. So your learning is here, this one involves self-soothing and self-regulating first. Like on the airplane, you're going to put your own mask on first, right? Before you can help your kids navigate their big feelings, you have to navigate your own. The truth is, we don't often want to experience our kiddos' big feelings, because then we have to face ours. And if we're afraid of uncomfortable feelings, we don't want to do that. But at the same time, we're passing that down. Our kids learn to also be afraid of uncomfortable feelings. We don't want to do that either. Our job is to help them develop a capacity for discomfort, not to take away their pain. If you're okay, they're okay. That one I am going to repeat. If you're okay, they're okay. There are lots of ways to put into place what I call micro practices to slow down, come into the here and now. That's really what it is, out of the past, out of the future, even if it was an hour ago or 20 years ahead, but into the right now, into the wise mind. We're so externally focused, right? Outward all day long. Notifications, dings from everywhere outside of us, moving at this warp speed, that what we need to do to train ourselves is to put into place these micro practices. I'm going to give you the easiest example. Well, I'll give you a few tonight. The follow-up series, the night that we talk about coming back to ourselves, we're going to dive deep, so you leave with a list of your micro practices that work for you. I'm talking micro, meaning takes 3 seconds to a minute max. So not a huge commitment. The commitment is to remember to do them. The easiest example of one of these practices, it's elongating the exhale, which I'm sure most of you live in Boulder, have heard about, right? It's quick and easy, though, and it works. Actually, let's all just do one right now, because my voice is shaking. I did a talk a year ago with a pediatrician in town all about this. The whole night was about these micro practices. That longer exhale, messages to your brain, literally, that everything's okay. If you want to do another one, feel free. Feels good. There are so many micro practices. Again, come to the follow-up if you're interested. A couple more just to mention tonight here. Standing in your 2 feet. We often lean and we're all over the place. but actually bringing attention to your 2 feet evenly on the floor. That's a good one. It'll bring you right here. Putting your hand on your heart. Oh, bumping this. Putting your hand on your heart is one of my favorites. It's also very compassionate to yourself. It's almost like a hug. And you can do this in the grocery line. You can do the foot one. I mean, I'm in the grocery line doing this, but you can do this in front of your children. It doesn't need to be secret. It's a beautiful modeling thing to do, right? Another one, stepping out under the sky. That one really works for me. I just need a second. I'm just gonna go in the backyard and just like, whew, see the clouds for a minute, or the blue usually. Just makes me remember how big, how small things are, right? And the other one for tonight, bringing your attention, of course, to your 5 senses. Brings you right here and now. So you're doing the dishes and you're triggered. Feel the water, the temperature on your hands, right? There you go. You can do your 2 feet. You can do 2 at once. Notice what you smell. You're outside arguing with your child in the park. Pause, senses. Oh, I hear a bird song. Brings you right here, back to yourself. These little practices during our days actually train the neural pathways to recenter and bring you back to yourself. But I want you to practice when you're calm, like during work, right? I'm not sure your work is calm, but during the day when you're not having big feelings, when you're not witnessing big emotions, just some regular moment. So that when you are triggered, you know your way back and your brain knows the way back. You've trained it, right? Stoplights. I have some clients, every stoplight, give them a little micro practice that's really working for them and they can't remember to do it. Do it at stoplights. The other really easy practice, last one for tonight, I can't help but mention it, is just notice feeling. I mean, they're, again, moving so fast, we normally don't notice. I'll say especially moms, because I'll be talking to them and they're talking about everyone else's feelings and needs, and I'll go, wait a minute, how do you feel when this happens? She's like, me? I don't know. I don't have time for me, right? And it's not to say dads don't either, but I just see this again and again with moms. They tend to just put themselves out the window. And it's really important in parenting to notice what you feel. And I just mean name it. Name it and accept it without judgment. That's it. So the other day it wasn't the other day, but a good example is I was leaving school. My daughter was in the back seat, and I had just bumped into someone I hadn't seen in a while. And we talked for a while, caught up, talked about getting the girls together. I get in the car and talking to my daughter about how much I like her. I haven't seen her in so long. And then we get to the stoplight right in front of the school, and I just have this weird feeling in my stomach. So I'm used to doing my practices, and I'm like, what's that? Of course, I'm doing it out loud. She's very used to it. But I'm not looking at her. I'm just going, something's weird in my stomach. Oh, I think it's jealousy. I'm just jealous of Katie. I can't wait to get together with her. I'm kind of jealous because they just went to Panama for 2 years, and it's a family. It just sounds so amazing, and just jealousy. Oh, green light. Here we go. And I just drove on. Named it and accepted it. Even if it was an unpleasant feeling or uncomfortable to admit, there's no wrong feeling. So be compassionate with yourself. This is the way to be more compassionate with your kids. When your kiddos are upset, it's so hard to witness their tears, their heartbreak, their disappointment. It's so painful to see them lash out or beg for negative attention. You want to end it, make it go away. But with regular practices like I'm talking about, you'll be able to access your wise mind more easily in the tough times. Your body, your nervous system will be able to ground and manage your kids' big emotions more effectively. As when you're with yourself, this is what happens. So this is first. Okay. Number 2, this job is sort of a double. They just go together. They're like brothers. Validate and empathize. You know what? I haven't been using this. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Where's Senan? Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I guess. your child is shrieking, acting out, in any way dysregulated, you know that word, right? They're not regulated, they're dysregulated, which we become too all the time. Your first job is what? Pop quiz. Who can answer? Come back
To yourself.
to yourself. Thank you. Glad you're listening. Remember then that you are separate from them. They're having their own experience. Allow them this. They can have their big emotions without you also having yours. We often see our kids through a filtered lens, through our own deeply ingrained programming. And this gets in the way of fully seeing or acknowledging them for who they are, for where they are, again, on that learning curve, in their childhood, in their growth. Reactivity, whether it's a snap, I'm a big snapper. Well, not so much anymore, but snapping is one of my go-to reactions. Whether it's a snap, a spank, a banish, that's scary for kids. It threatens the relationship, and no skills are taught. What your children need instead is witnessing. Witnessing in their emotions. And this is true present attention. There is nothing worse than kids suffering alone. And they see themselves and their feelings as bad, develop anger disassociation. So look at their little hands. If they're in kindergarten, look at their little hands if they're in 5th grade. They're still little. And remember, it's a good reminder to just look at their hands. They're learning. And it's not soft to allow for hard feelings. Instead, your job is to validate and empathize so kids learn to cope with support, to cope with their sadness or cope with their anger. This is the only way that they'll learn to adapt, which is a really important skill in life. To adjust to what cannot be changed, to live with disappointment, to know they will recover. They have to experience it. It's not something that can be told or taught in that way. They have to experience it. And this will lead them to having a healthy relationship with themselves, which means they can have healthy relationships with others. So it sounds like this. Here's some sentence starters. Oh, I see you are mad. I see is a great one. So less is more, you're going to start to notice here. Less words. I hear you. I hear you. You really wanted to go, and now we're not going. I hear you. You're hurt. Yeah. You're hurt. That's okay. Right? Making these uncomfortable feelings okay. Even that sounds so hard, honey. That sounds so hard. Stay as neutral and empathetic as possible. Quiet nodding is really helpful. You're having a good cry. Notice what I did there? Made crying good. Yeah, you're having such a good cry. You're in listening mode, allowing them to have their feelings, nodding, breathing, self-soothing. You might need to be doing breaths like I just did. Even talking about it got me a little dysregulated. I do it without even thinking. And I just take a little longer exhale, whatever your practices are. But I want you to tune in to what you hear and repeat it back to them. That's what active listening is. Active listening is very validating. So I'm going to do it. Tiffany, will you be an example with me? Okay. If you've been in couples therapy, you know what active listening is. If you haven't, here's what it is. It's listening to someone and then repeating back what you heard to check in to be sure you heard. This is huge for kids. So in 2 sentences, or just don't overthink it, tell me about how you got dinner tonight. How you got fed.
I drove to Avo's to support the fundraiser for football and picked up pizza and went home.
And did you eat that way? See if she was talking about her kids. Okay, and did you get enough to eat?
No.
Okay. So now I wanted a little more, so I was pulling a little more. But now I'm gonna do the active listening. So you went to ABOS to support the school, and then you fed your kids, and you got a little bit to eat, but maybe not enough. Is that right? Okay. See what I just did? You do this with your kids. Start really doing this with them. Thank you. Nobody knows how they're feeling better than they do. Your job is to connect with this. That's empathy. The other important piece is getting curious, right? Instead of scared. Be curious to understand your child better, to learn something about them. They're changing all the time. So in your head, this sounds something like, I wonder why she's having such a hard time. Is there something underlying here that I'm missing? Right? Why is this extra hard for her? That's an I wonder, sort of curious energy, right? Maybe you went to get braces and you got there and the dentist said, oh, we're not doing the braces today, and your child lost it and like the whole night just couldn't get over it. And you're like, oh my God, get over it. I know it was surprising, honey, and change plans, but that's gonna happen in life, and so let's move on, right? But that's not what they need, right? They instead will feel and so appreciate if instead you had a more curious approach and wonder, like, even in your own mind, they can feel it. They're little Yodas, these kids. I wonder if, having grandparents here all last week was just exhausting and she's just like worn out. I wonder if it's the tiredness that's making it more intense. Or I wonder if she was actually more scared than I thought about getting braces and had really worked herself up for it. Maybe, I wonder about that. I might ask her in the next few days. Right? I wonder if there's more here that I'm missing. What can I learn about my son or my daughter? Because this is a big reaction. Not judging it, being curious. And with this desire to help, then you notice what skills need to be worked on and built. Right? You've got one kiddo who hits their younger sibling. So we can address it a lot of different ways. What we need to be sure to do is notice, really need to work on other ways to show us you're angry. That's one way, but that doesn't work. That's not safe. We crossed a boundary. And now I'm going to have this conversation, probably multiple times, but in the next few days, we're definitely going to have a conversation about other ways to show us you're angry. Skill building, right? When you do speak, I'm saying be really quiet and curious. But when you do speak, be sure of your intent. If it's to offer steadiness, support, love, comfort, okay, great. If you notice yourself judging your kiddo, you should be really honest with yourself. Flip that on its head and just notice. Don't judge yourself for doing it, and instead just get quieter and more curious. More curious. Turn the curiosity up. Instead of trying to convince them not to feel a certain way, you want to message to your children, I still like you when you feel this way. Messaging implicitly, this is a lot right now, but it will pass. Feelings can be overwhelming. Yep. You can handle it, and I can handle it. We aren't our emotions. They just move through us. So let the feelings run their course. Pain comes and it goes. Your job is to keep that even, accepting tone, stay steady, warm. And no matter how you may want your child to recover quickly from, say, a sting of rejection or something of that nature, do not bash others. If we develop a habit of dismissing coaches, teachers, classmates, we set up our kids to blame others, raising a generation of victims, and we don't want that. Instead, listen to them evaluate it themselves. And lastly, we as parents, we often linger over our kids' pain for much longer than they do. You may indeed want to take a little time and relate to a time you felt really upset. Share what you did as an example, whether it was helpful or not helpful, how you resolved it. Just relate, right? So they know that you too feel uncomfortable feelings, have ups and downs, that you practice regulating. But if you're interviewing for pain points, you're going to force your kids to marinate it in it longer. So let them lead. When they're ready to move on, they're ready to move on. And trust that. Okay. The last one I promised we would talk about is turn conflict into connection. We are their container, the container within which our children are held and safe. Your kids are allowed to have big feelings, and they are not allowed to be unsafe in doing so. So these are the boundaries. And they've got to be established early on, right? Just think for a minute in your own home. Like, what's safe in your home? And is this super clear to everybody? Okay. By holding space for your kiddos, you're being truly accepting and present. This takes trusting that they will learn from their experience if they're allowed to have it. You have to accept their discomfort as part of their learning and growing resilience. Allowing for it to be messy and uncomfortable is super hard. And I'm asking you to sit with them in it. Really hard. But when you do this, then they're not alone. While they're learning what they're capable of and how to self-soothe, big feelings can be really scary, and almost intolerable alone. But if you sit with them through it, they can do it. So instead of focusing on the challenging behavior, right, intervening just at the behavioral level, like, that is driving me crazy, go to your room for a timeout. Come out when you can just act differently. I'm not against timeouts. If you do timeouts, that's not like a placated statement. It's just an example. And this is one from Dr. Becky Kennedy. Do any of you listen to her? That I loved and just am reminded of. She said once about timeouts. If they didn't know how to swim, would you just say, go to your room and come out when you know how to swim? That one just hit me, right? No, of course not. By shifting our mindset around emotions, we help our children cope with theirs for years to come. So instead, see that they need help. They need you. They need more presence 9 times out of 10. And they need skills. This will take keeping those boundaries around yourself, right? Self-soothing yourself, for sure. Just be able to sit with them in the mess. You're going to be doing that every 30 seconds, depending how sensitive you are. That's how often I have to when I'm in it with my girl. But remembering what's mine, what's theirs to feel. Not getting overly involved, not getting on the roller coaster with them. Allow them accountability and not add consequences for them showing you their big feelings, right? This is what allowing is about. Allowing for what is. Not what you wished this weekend would be, or not what you expected, but allowing, because allowing leads to greater connection. So watch that you don't try to fix things for them. Instead, just allow. It's a pretty powerful word, actually. And this acceptance is priceless for kids. They know when you're resisting and when you're really okay. This has everything to do with tone of voice, the energy you're bringing, your willingness to let it be messy. So some examples. If you've got a little one, say they're just melting down on the floor, right? So with your physical body, you can allow it sitting down on the floor at their level, maybe enough space away so you feel safe, a boundary around yourself, if they're all over the place, right? But just be in their space, be with them in it. Maybe it's 5 minutes of that, maybe it's 15. Every kiddo is different, right? And they're also going to be checking you. How are you doing? Well, you're doing your practices, right? And then maybe after a while, you just go to gently set your arms on your knees and open your arms, letting them know, I'm here for a hug when you're ready. I'm here, right? With your voice and your head, it's back to that idea of neutral, empathetic, listening, nodding. This is hard. You can do it. I can do it. We got this. We can do hard things. If they want space, some kids want space, right? Say you've got a 4th grader and they're like, get away from me, you're too close to me. That's okay, great. They know, they've tuned into themselves, they know what works for them. In that minute, they need space. Okay, stay near and comforting, that's it. It can sound like, I see you, I hear you, I'm right on the other side of the door. I'll be in the kitchen when and if you need me, or if you want to sit on the other side of the door, you find your place to respect their space. Your kids' feelings need support, you see, not solutions. When they have support, they feel connected. They're actually really good at coming up with solutions. Really good. And when you don't let kids sit in the discomfort, you're actually messaging that you don't think they can handle it. The culture of parenting today is be right there to fix it. But no, I'm saying no. Be there, but not to fix. Just the be there part. Let's empower them. And just as a note, when your child's coming down from a big expression, right, you might ask what they need. I remember one really big, I have a very highly sensitive daughter, and I'm highly sensitive. And one time, she didn't want me near, and then it went on maybe an hour. And then it was, I want you closer, but not too close. And then, 15 minutes later, I want you there. And I just stopped. I turned the stoves off, and I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to sit in this with her. This is a big one. I have no idea what it's about. I'm going to just hold her hand through it, metaphorically, right? And then it was there, and then it's touch my leg. No, don't touch my leg. And then it was sit on me. It should have been videoed. They know what they want and they need. And when they start to come down, you can ask gently, do you know what you need? If you have an idea, you want a cup of tea, right? But ask them, do you know what you plan to do? If it was about a certain situation, or even suggesting maybe they do something even tiny for themselves. Do you want to go get your blanket? Come back, right? To break the cycle sometimes of bad thoughts. And again, join me for the follow-up. We're going to dive into this and how to empower them more specifically. It's just not time tonight to do it all so deeply. It can be helpful, though, in gaining their sort of sense of control over the circumstances versus wallowing in the helplessness. To just make a suggestion, like, do you have an idea for what's next or what you want to do now, or right? But give it to them. Our littles have immature brains that don't know yet how to regulate emotions on their own. And the only way they can learn is through close relationship. You're being there. And relationship takes practice. Like piano and soccer and reading, and being in relationship takes practice. Children need to experience all their emotions. Nature has endowed every child with all the circuits for a reason. It's their essential need. Their job is to feel. They need to develop in this way. And society has taught us and them to suppress certain emotional experiences, the uncomfortable ones. As Gabor Mate says, this wounds children. As parents, we need to be our child's safest place, a place of rest for our children. Your children shouldn't need to work at your relationship to make it functional or work to get their parents to accept them. They're naturally wired to pay attention to what keeps parents close and what pushes them away. They're wired this way. This is the essence of attachment. So let's be close and focused on support and healthy relationship. Your kids need to be able to just be with you, however they are and feel, however messy. We can offer unconditional, loving acceptance even when they're having and through their really big emotions. So I'm going to recap here. When your kids are having them, remember your 3 main jobs. 1 was practice coming back to yourself, right? Be mindful of your knee-jerk reactions and bring attention to your own emotional regulation. Bring awareness to your own feelings first. If you're okay, they're okay. Practice tuning into yourself, coming into that wise mind, into the present moment with micro practices. 2, validate and empathize. This is, remember, more listening than talking, and that active listening. Remembering that acceptance is a quiet energy. Keep your tone neutral, curious, empathetic, warm, and loving. Get really curious about who your kiddo is and what they feel and what skills need to be taught next. And be aware of your messaging, both implicit and explicit, your language and your energy. 3 was turn conflict into connection. Be a container for your child and sit with them in the messiness, practicing getting comfortable in it. Remember, their big feelings aren't yours to fix. Offer support instead of solutions. By allowing them to have their feelings, you're assuring them they're human and they can handle it. With loving support, kids learn how to dress for the weather of life, right? We all know it's full of storm clouds and passing rain showers and blizzards and fires, and they can't control the weather, and neither can you, but you can be there for them. So remind them over and over again that they're the sky. They're the sky. Weather just comes and goes. Jump ahead with me for just a minute. Imagine your son is in 7th grade. He's a part of a tricky text thread. There's a little bullying, questionable bullying going on. He's quiet. He hasn't said a word, but it's a group thread. So he may be complicit, but he's getting uncomfortable and he's not sure what to do. A kid in a moment like this doesn't think concretely about, can I go talk to my parent about the situation or not? They have collected memories in their bodies over a dozen years for this example. That's a lot of examples. It's a lot of memories that inform their choices, right? So without even thinking about it, he's looking at, what have I learned about talking to my parents about tricky situations when I'm not at my best? Before I knew how or had the words to talk to them, do these moments feel safe? Do my parents still think of me as a good person who is struggling and in need of help? Or over the course of my life so far, these dozen years, have I tended to experience these situations as feeling worse than before and feeling punished? That child's highly unlikely to share as a 7th grader this tricky spot he finds himself in. They've learned to keep the hard, less than ideal moments away from you as a parent. Here's one more jump ahead. How about thinking about your daughter further out now? Let's say 20 years from now. She has experienced a miscarriage. You want her to know she can come to you to fall apart, right? You won't try to talk her out of her sadness, work to convince her to be positive or try again. You won't somehow make it about you. You all know people in your lives who do that, right? But you want her to know that you can handle just sitting on that park bench with her in it, holding her hand for as long as she needs to let the grief move through her, right? Okay, one more. Further out. Say you have 2 kiddos, a boy and a girl, 2 healthy children, 40 years down the road, let's say. I know it seems really far, but they will live that long. They're close, these 2 kiddos. You've modeled and taught them how to really be there for each other the way you've been there for them. Your daughter's brother says something at a dinner party they're both at and really upsets her. So she takes some space and he lets her. They don't talk for about a week, which is long for them. She cries, tells a loved one how she feels. They take this amount of space till she feels like she's calmed down. And then she comes to him, reaches out. He's there with open arms. They repair together, they rebuild what was broken. All the tiny moments where we give space for our child's tears, connection, and repair matter. The way we parent matters. Our kids matter. We matter. Conscious parenting allows our children to continue to grow and transform from experiences. And if we are doing it right, we are evolving right alongside them. It takes, like I said at the beginning, humility and trust and courage to self-reflect, be willing to course correct, to parent in this way. Again, the repair piece we're going to dive into in the deeper dive on the 3rd night. But you're all capable of doing this, every single one of you. You may need some support. It takes practice. It takes a shift in the mindset. Tonight, there's 2 offers of support. One is I'm offering, as a thank you for you coming, a free 40-minute free one-on-one consult with me. They're normally an hour of my coaching is $200, so don't miss out on this. There's the link. It's very invisible. Free consult at the end. Please feel free to book a time. And additionally, some of you may know about this, but if you were moved or inspired or even challenged tonight, I'm offering a deeper dive. Penn is offering a deeper dive, a 3-part follow-up series on tonight. So the 3 workshops will be on Zoom, and we'll take each one of these 3 jobs I talked about, right, and have a whole night focused to it. Should be smaller groups. You can pick and choose which ones you can attend or which ones are most interesting to you. If you sign up, I think, for all 3, there's a discount if you are willing to commit to all 3. And it's Zoom. I think 2 of them are during the day and 1 is in the evening. So come, please come, and we'll continue the conversation. There is time now for questions, but the link is at the bottom if you can't see, and the dates, April 9th, 11th, and 17th. Here, I blew this up. It'll bring you to the page that describes the deeper dive, the follow-up series, like in much more detail, and the dates and the times, and you can register right there if you want. So I blew it up, which was smart because it's a little hard to see the little link. Oh, and there are flyers in the hallway and for on your way out. Super. I'd love to take some questions. I'm just going to have a sip of tea and check the time. We're good. Oh, thanks. Right back at ya. Really, it's really a job, this parenting business. Yes.
I have a 5-year-old, and I'm curious about dealing with when they get physical in the moment. Like, I kind of get, being calm and all, everything we talked about, and then talking about how can you express your anger without hurting. But, like, in the moment,
Yeah.
this has been happening a lot lately, where as soon as he's disappointed, he kind of just wants to hit whoever's around him. Only family, not his family. But, or, like, push stuff off the table. Like, what are we supposed to do in that scenario when it's, like, literally physical?
Yeah, boys love to move objects through space. That's what they do. Is it predictable, the time of day, or the situation?
I mean, I guess I sort of know, like, ooh, that's happening.
Mm.
Sister can cause, setting off, and somewhat predictable, but only within minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, not a lot of prep time.
Yeah.
And another question I have is, what is he hurting anyone else? Or is it more objects going into the air? Is anything getting hurt?
He hit me and his sister mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you respond?
Stop doing that, literally trying to push away, getting between him and his sisters and telling her, remove yourself from the situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And does he have a break, or when does he get to go back to the play or back to the interacting?
Yeah, sometimes he'll remove himself, go to his room or something, but and then usually within a couple minutes it's
Resolved how? Sorry, I didn't mean to be the question asker, but I can't.
Well, so after we've all calmed down, we've stopped doing whatever it is that's upsetting him, and then he'll kind of just huff and puff, and then just reemerge, sort of okay, now I'm ready to play normally again.
Okay, so there's no, generally, no conversation before he can come back into the group. He kind of makes that call when he. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So I'd love to talk to you one-on-one. As a quick answer, safety first. Number one. I mean, nobody can be unsafe in your home. That is just. I'd really want to talk to you about how you set that really clear boundary. How that's just firm and matter of fact. And I have questions about and would want to talk to you about the connecting in piece to what is underlying the outbursts, to see if we can learn and help him recognize when those feelings are coming up, right? But sturdy parenting is about not only that connecting piece, but then also you laying out the boundary of what will continue and what will not. So I don't even really love the word consequences, but it's getting super clear about what is acceptable and what is not. And the second that's crossed, especially if it has to do with safety, which I'm hearing it might a little bit. Yeah, excuse me. And again, this would come back to, and we can talk about this together, but your family values, right? You should be able to tie every limit that you set, every line that you draw to a family value, so much so that your kid by 6 is telling you, oh, don't tell me. Why? Oh, wait, I know why, because our family values safety or, whatever it is. So in that situation, there's a lot there to discuss, right? About expectations set up ahead of time and the clarity of those. I also would notice. You did notice he goes off on his own, takes some space and time. Beautiful. I kind of love that. Let's explore that, right? And maybe go after him after a few minutes. Let him be, hey, is it okay if I come close, get on eye level, and use that moment. I noticed you needed some space, and so you took it. Tell me more about that. And you might learn right there what was happening before he needed the space, right? For sure, when he returns, I would have eye contact about how we return and the agreement. Returning, glad to see you, right? It's first really warm, connecting. Welcome back, buddy. Hey, come here a minute. Touch base, right? Before getting back into the play. So there's just it's multifaceted. But it's about weaving in the connection and also being a sturdy parent, holding that line really firmly. Oh, that doesn't happen. And not, overreacting, lending him your calm, your steadiness, drawing the line. Now you'll be over here. That doesn't work. It's not safe for the group. I know it's not enough. Please book a time. Yeah. Tell me your name. Alessandra, nice to meet you. Thank you for asking. It's nuanced. I wish I had more of a black and white on that one. Yes.
On that same theme of what's drawing the line,
Mm-hmm.
lately I have a 9-year-old that seems like she's 9 going on 13.
Yeah.
Because she has started to say, I hate you.
Oh, that's so hard.
And I'm not like, I don't feel terrible about that actually, but I'm afraid that I have this real fear, to your point about jumping into the future. Mostly I'm afraid that she's going to turn whatever that anger is, because sometimes it's completely unprovoked. Or, you know, there's something that happened earlier or something, because we're not in an argument or anything. She'll kind of come at it, and I'm afraid she's going to turn it back on her and start, you know, feeling really bad about herself.
There's some real anger there.
I'm not terribly impacted by, you know, I hate you.
The words, okay.
Thing, but I'm fearful about it, and you know, kind of like same thing. Like you got to have a safe place where people don't talk like that. So
yeah, and in that moment, the learning doesn't really happen in that moment. When we're dysregulated, we're not like in a learning receptive place, right?
Yeah.
So it's the snuggle that night. It's the over the next few days. You have to put, even if you need a Post-it note to yourself, like, oh, we're going to circle back to this. When we're more even, we're calm, we're both regulated, and I'm gonna talk to her about this, right? Whether it's tied back to a family value, like it's not it's taking out our emotions on other people, right? And we could tie that if we were to talk about what value does that tie to, right? There's anger there, right? We sense that. So getting curious about that. Hey, honey, not in the moment, right? At a later time, that's not too far ahead. Feeling like there's a lot going on for you. Tell me what it's like to be third grade? To be about to end your third grade year. What's it like to be 9 these days? I know nothing about it. Just let her talk and see what comes up, right? Also, the boundaries around yourself are really important. So in that moment, it could just, even if you aren't so hurt by it, kudos to you. Other people might be a best friend one day, or right? Doesn't feel that great, so you can just go, ow, no thanks. Right? We want to teach her she can have her anger. She's approaching adolescence. It's so much earlier these days. She can have those feelings, but she's not allowed to take them out on others, right? And spew them onto others. You can be mad, but you can't be mean. So it's really helping her by having to sprinkle these ideas in with her, and while you're walking the dog, or when you just get a snuggly moment. Hey, babe, what's going on? And because it's okay. I'm sensing a little anger, or things are kind of up for you and maybe feeling a little hard. I don't know. Tell me. I'm here to listen. And then gently weave in, hey, and that's all okay. Pretty normal. And you can have those, and I'm here to listen anytime. But we can't just take our yuck feelings. They're all okay. There's no wrong feeling. Tell her this. But we can't take them and put them on others, because it actually doesn't make it go away. We might think it might. But makes it worse, because now someone else is maybe feeling down, and it usually doesn't make you feel any better. So this is something we're going to be working on, right? And two, I think that kids often, I know that kids, they start with you when it comes to feelings. Well, you did this, or you make me this, or I hate you. I know a lot of adults who do that too, actually. But what we want to teach them is train them to turn that around to I. Oh, yeah, you have some opinions about me. Let's hear that with an I. They probably learned this at Foothill, I'm not sure, the SEL curriculum, but I feel blank when you blank. Or I feel mad when you tell me to stop, Mom. Yeah, I get that. The other person can really hear it so much better when you start with I. So you got to model that a lot. You doing that a lot. Even you can start with, you are driving me nuts, and go, oh, scratch that. I'm annoyed with that noise. Please stop. You're modeling all the time. And then encourage her to start, she's ready, and even earlier, to start using the I.
Thank you.
And it might, there are times, there's one more thing, because I think it applies to everyone. When you're having family conversations, I don't know, some of you do highs and lows, roses and thorns, or, if you notice something that needs to be worked on, you might include it. So even with your little guy, tonight we're doing a mountain, a valley, and a silly, or tonight we're doing a mountain, a valley, and we're doing a time when we wanted to hit something. Don't say it's about him. Be more undercover than that. And everyone in the room probably has a little moment like that. Oh, was that the stop sign? Or make one up, right, if you don't. And I just wanted that person just was on their phone and they missed the green. And I wanted to hit, but I knew I couldn't. And so what did you do instead? Took my breath. Okay, your turn, hon. Right? Kind of normalizing. Anger's okay. Yeah, but it's not okay to cross the lines. And get really, really tight on those with connection. Did you have a question or comment?
My comment was just, does the I statement work with tattletaling? Because they get so focused on what the other one did, it's hard to referee.
Oh yeah, it works really well. Everyone has to stay in the I. So we probably can't do it until we're regulated. So we probably need to do some of those, but we can't force that either. So that's please come to the deeper dive. We, in our practice in regulating, then develop our kids' micro practices. Everyone's doing it. Everyone's doing their own. They're totally different because we're all different. And then, seems like we have stuff to talk about here, you guys, but let's all just take care of ourselves first, calm down, and we'll come back. Even with my daughter, who's now halfway through middle school, right? It's she'll just want to keep talking about something, and I am just completely dysregulated. The topic is freaking me out. I'm unprepared, whatever it is, and I just go, I hear this is really important to you. I'm not in a space where I can talk about this right now, so we're going to come back to it. I've been saying that to her for probably 5 years now. She'll be like, no, I want to talk about it right now. I'm fine. I'm calm. I'm fine. I can talk. I'm like, you might be, but I'm not. Right? Boundaries. So I promise, kiddo, I hear this is important. We will come back, and you have to come back. And you have to, Yes, in the back.
At what age do they start to be able to recognize what's going on for themselves? Because, as an example, related, I notice sometimes my daughter is 11 and explode moves. And then 3 days later, when we're driving, she'll tell me what happened.
Yeah.
She's disappointed that, some of her friends or something.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering if I can maybe shorten that time. Then I start to, then you start to see that almost all behavior is related to something else.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So just trying to find that I'm doing this treasure hunt all the time. I think they should start to recognize itself.
Oh, I know, right? I really appreciate your question, and I've been there. And in such a loving way, I want to encourage you to let go of that want and be so grateful she's sharing with you when she's ready. And that's not the answer you wanted. But I think developmentally, there's so much that she's going through, and the message from you that will support her in this developmental stage is really, I'm here, I'm available. When you feel like talking, know I'm here, honey. Again and again and again. And it might take an hour, it might take a week. It doesn't matter. If she's circling back and you're trusting in that time, you're connected. If in that time you see her behaving in ways that aren't healthy for her, or taking it out on others and just really off for a number of days, that's a different conversation about how to self-soothe. And seems like you're going through something. It's okay if you're not ready to share. I'm here when you are. In the meantime, do you want to go in the yard for 20 minutes? Talking with her about noticing herself and what helps her feel better and what doesn't, right? You can be this great witness, an observer. Wow, if I let her be on the iPad for 2 hours, she seems worse, usually. So it's going to be an hour tonight, honey. And then if you're, maybe do something that just feels really good for you. Want to go see what the neighbor's up to? You could give some ideas of things that you know that and make her feel embodied again. So you can be giving input, but it's really about stepping back, especially 11 and on, to really just let them have the experience and messaging the whole time, I'm here. I'm here when you're ready to share. And trusting they'll come back. That trust is key. Yeah. Yes.
I heard a lot of mindfulness related stuff, and you're talking. I really appreciated that with the noticing and curiosity. But on that topic, we try to only change ourselves and not our kids, which works in the best of times. But we have, our own parents kind of looking in on us, and we have a very ADHD 10-year-old boy who has big emotions, very poor executive functioning, and he says and does a lot of mean things that we try to just, acknowledge and set boundaries around for ourselves. But then our parents come in and say, "Why don't you discipline that kid? That kid is spoiled. What is wrong with you?" And, right? And now we've got our own trauma, their trauma, everybody's trauma.
Yes.
How can we help ourselves in such a situation? It's a lot of trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can tell you're not alone, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel very judged by my
Yeah.
mother-in-law.
Yeah.
ADHD kid. So what can I do to
Excuse me.
help bring that curiosity and kindness when?
You mean so let me clarify your question. A little active listening. Are you asking how to help them bring more curiosity into their way, or are you wondering about self-soothing and kind of like regulating when you've got both ends in your space?
Part of it is I have kind of an not useful hope that the situation will change. I'm guessing it might not. But
well,
more concrete.
Your son's 10, so this is probably, your parents are doing the best they can with what they know. So it's probably how it's going to be. Okay, so now what is the question? I want you to be honest with yourself and your family around your values, right? And what you believe in terms of passing your values down. So I want to ask you how you can do that and have it still be safe. Boundaries are just coming up for me left and right, right?
Right, so one side is telling my kid, hey, sometimes, grandma's going to be not understanding of how you are, but at the same time, I don't want you to treat that as a carte blanche to say, oh, grandma's mean or,
Right. Well, okay. Now I'm understanding a little bit where you're going with this. So we want our kids, no matter our relationship with our parents, even me, right? And it's tough. I want my children to have their own relationships with their grandparents. Not mine, not filtered by mine, not decided by me. And so you can be 10, you can way earlier, be really open with your kiddo about it. Hey, grandma has a really different way than I do or we do. And it's hard for me. It's hard for me sometimes. It's like confusing. And is it for you too? I mean, be curious, right? Do you feel the difference? Get on the same page about this. Like, there's a difference. Maybe he doesn't notice. Maybe he probably does. Quite intuitive, right? And so then you can just name it. That's your grandma. And I want you to have a relationship with your grandma. whatever relationship you and grandma decide to have. Just know that I'm working on my own to kind of stay with myself, doing a little breathing when she's around, and trying to stay really clear about how I believe the values we want to impart to you and how we want to do that. So I'm a little busy in my mind when grandma's here. You can share that. That's so helpful for emotional development for kids, to hear inside your head, to do that metacognition out loud. It's okay. Not when you do it before they arrive. Do it on a Sunday when you're not going to see them. Sprinkle it in, right? Hey, the other day I was noticing this. And just be really clear. I want you you and grandma have your own thing. You see things in grandma I don't even know how to see, right? Is that helpful? Okay. And there's a lot there. Again, it's pretty nuanced. All of it is. So set a time, come to the deeper dive, and we can go a little deeper. Yeah.